Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so happy to be welcoming you to Awakening Your Inner Voice with Psychic Wendy James. My name is Lauren and I work on the AC Hub events team, and I'll be your host today. Just before we get started, I'm going to go over a few housekeeping items with you. To stay connected to the Algonquin College community, be sure to tune in to our other events that you can find through our events calendar, which we will link in the chat. Since this is the first week of our winter semester, we have a ton of awesome events planned for you this week. So be sure to check out the Let's Get Social Week event page and to register there. We'll also share that link in the chat for you. This event is equipped with closed captioning if you need it. To turn on closed captioning, please select the CC icon along the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. This event is also being recorded, and the recording will be available to watch on the AC Hub on-demand website in the coming days. We will share a link to that in the chat as well. All right, so Wendy has a very captivating presentation for you today, and I am so excited to get started. If we have time, we will take questions towards the end of the event, so please hold your questions till then, and then I'll have you type them into the chat. If we run out of time for questions, we will also provide you with links to connect with Wendy offline. All right, so I now have the pleasure of introducing you to the wonderful Wendy James. Working for over a decade in healthcare, Wendy James started reading cards, entertaining at events, and teaching psychic development and meditation. While living in Rochester, New York, she developed an ethical psychic service company called Love Dragons in 1994. And in 1999, Wendy left her job in healthcare to step into a new full-time professional psychic career. In 2001, Wendy and her family and her company moved to Ottawa, Ontario. She has a vast experience in the psychic industry, working with many other psychics, teaching professional ethics and networking. Her greatest passion remains empowering others to wake up their own psychic within. Thank you so much for being here today, Wendy. Please take it away.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for today. It's been on my calendar for a while, and I just couldn't wait to burst forward with today's time with all of you. And thank you, Lauren and Sam, for having me as well. I've been a psychic for a long time. And just because I call myself a psychic does not mean that I have something that everyone in the world has. We have, all of us, a internal voice, a inner awareness, a psychic self. And I want to talk to you guys about ways to find that inside of you, ways to jazz it up, where it sits, how to listen to it. And I just couldn't wait to chat with you. So here we are. You had like the intro covers everything. So I'm going to dive right in. I truly know that a lot of people look at psychics and they hear and think manipulation, exploitation. They worry about, trickery in the industry. And there is that. It does exist. But there are also people who are very ethical and professional and fair and hopefully always working for the highest good. But for me, even though I'm in this industry, one of the things that I most prefer is to help others hear their own inner voice. I would much prefer for others to be able to quiet their minds and answer their questions for themselves than even consulting me, even though it is my job and my role as even in consulting me, I would much prefer someone to be able to find that in themselves so that if they do consult me, I can be confirming what they already feel, what they already are listening to inside of themselves. Learning to wake up that inner voice can help you with self-awareness. It can help you with self-mastery. It can help you understand your dreams, your first impressions, your gut feelings about things more. It can help you when you're trying to make decisions and you want to listen to not only how do I think about each of these things, but what is my internal voice telling me about these things? It's vast, it's life-changing. And I think it's something that we should have all been taught, or that all of us should be taught from when we're really young. To learn that we are these intuitive, limitless light beings living this human experience. But in that, we also have all these little gifts that somewhere deep inside of us help us even subtly behind the scene, even when we're busy of mind, that little inner self is in there. So yay. Part of learning how to wake this inner self up is learning how to quiet your mind a little bit. And that's easily said and not so easy to achieve. A lot of times when we hear quieting our mind, immediately people shut off because they think, I'm too busy. I have too much on my mind. I have too much busyness going on in my head. And I think most people feel that way. It's hard to get to a state of non-thought. What's key is that it's not about needing to master the skill. It's about being excited about practicing it a little here and there, even just at the beginning, not having to suddenly dedicate large amounts of time, especially if you have a busy schedule or you're really, really active, to know that sometimes just spacing out and daydreaming and letting yourself, we all have it where you suddenly know, I just literally spaced out. Like I was flaked out right there. That is quieting the mind. You're not actually thinking when you're spacing out a little bit. And even though you don't realize it, that's a form of meditation. Being able to achieve that tiny little goal a couple times a day at first can really help you quiet all the chatter. Other things that can help are doing things that are mindful, where you're in singular thought. For me, a big puzzle helps me do that. If I'm doing a puzzle or if I'm doing mind puzzles, I know it's keeping my mind busy, but I'm literally not thinking about anything else. And I maintain a lot of that because of my job. I've been doing this a long time. I have to be able to get out of the chatter of my brain and get to a place where I have singular thought or am very calm of thought, so that I can slow down those wheels and hear my inner voice talking to me. And I encourage that these things are little things you can practice. I'm reading my notes to the side if my eyes are darting around. Also knowing yourself, what the good, the bad, and the ugly of you is, as far as how you truly feel about things. I know it sounds a little strange, but we all have and like inner workings where we're glad nobody knows that side of us, or we're glad that nobody can hear how our thoughts are going or what we're saying inside our head sometimes. What's important is that you know the quality of your thoughts, that you're aware of them without any self-judgment, sometimes even with a little bit of sense of humor, but to not hesitate to truly understand what makes you tick, because the more you start to understand why you're doing everything you do, the excuse to say, I don't know why I did that. In my opinion, I don't believe that. I think we always know if we slow down our thoughts enough, don't blame it on anyone else, and ask ourselves, what was my motivation there? What was I hoping to get out of that? What caused that? Why did I do that? In understanding how your mind works when you're thinking, helps you understand how your subconscious is going to try to talk to you as well. Sort of what triggered there, what triggered me there, to know that the inner voice is also very subtle and it can start triggering you. What's triggering me to feel this way? What's triggering me to have this experience? How did I participate in creating this experience? Because in understanding where we've been and what we're doing, it can help us manage our intuitive self into a direction that we're much more joyful or more successful or more content, more peaceful, more wealthy, even if that's the goal. To be more loving is to understand ourselves and to let our psychic self open up and help us walk that direction as well, avoiding conflict, working through conflict, but to understand what makes you tick and to not be afraid of who you are, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is part of the unconditional observer, watching yourself, that will help your psychic self grow and expand. Journaling, all of these processes while you're in them can help too. I know a lot of people are nervous about journaling because they don't want anybody to ever see their journal. And I get that. But I do encourage, if you have a way to document things in your life that feels very safe, especially as you develop yourself intuitively, to be able to really jot down who you are as you develop, how you perceive the world, psychic experiences, writing them down, intuitive things that you download, taking note of it. And the reason that is that the more you do it, the more you start to build trust in yourself, where you're recognizing this really is happening. This really is starting to unfold. I'm actually beginning to start to quiet my mind more. I'm noticing the benefits of that. So always I encourage, when you're really starting to develop your internal voice and your inner self, is to start a little bit of a documentation of it so that you can start to trust the process even more. And maybe sometimes even go back and think, wow, look what I've learned since I was at this place early on. Making sure that you're also, and this is kind of for all things that we want to be successful in our life, is to take care of yourself. Of course, the more well rested you are, the more clear you are internally, emotionally, physically, the more you're able to have a little clearer inner voice. This subtle, beautiful inner voice of yours can get a little bit louder as you continue to balance all the other parts of your life. Your internal voice can expand as well. And it doesn't mean that even if you're living a wild life, or if you've got a little bit of a not necessarily the most healthy behaviors or things, it doesn't mean that you can't open up that inner voice. It's just something to be aware of as you continue to expand it. This thing's been with you your whole life. And the part that I love is sort of saying, okay, we're going to get our thoughts out of the way, and we're going to meet this part of ourself even more that's always been with us, that nagging little internal voice that sometimes just knocks at the door endlessly. One of the key parts to understanding what is a psychic message is to seriously, when you get feelings, when you get thoughts, immediately to ask yourself, is this in my head or is this in my heart? Is this a feeling or am I thinking this? When we're trying to open up intuitively, we have so many thoughts about everything. I mean, everything that I'm saying to you right now, you're thinking about. You're thinking about maybe what I might say next, or you're thinking about how it relates to your own life. But the part that's interesting is when you take it a little further to say, how is what I'm hearing right now making me feel? It's a very different answer than it is, what am I hearing? Or what might come next. It takes us out of thought and it identifies us with the little intuitive self that's also listening to this lecture, that's inside of you and probably a little bit excited to hear somebody speaking its language a little bit. Being able to say, how does this make me feel? You can apply that to almost everything in your daily life. When you're pondering a direction in your life, you're facing, say, a choice, you've got a couple different roads things can go, you want to look at some choices. Looking at the logic, the results, all the stuff on paper about each choice is important. We must remain very grounded in information, logic, and fact-based things. But to also make space for, how does each one make me feel? When I look at it from a neutral perspective, if I just ponder each, not think about them, not know which I hope for, what I hope for, but really just if I sit with it, how does it feel? Is there anything that's giving me a hesitation in one direction or another, and why? Again, understanding what makes you tick, understanding what it feels like to be held back, or to be biting your own tongue, or to say something you didn't mean, or to mean what you really said. All of that has feelings attached to it. So when we're looking at things where we want to compare them intuitively or dig into them intuitively more, important is to take it away from fact for a moment, always keeping fact as a key part when we're making decisions. I'm not saying to make decisions just based on tarot cards, or just suddenly I had a dream, I must do this. I think sit down and always bring logic forward. But to open up that psychic self is to take that extra step and to say, what am I feeling? I love that. And I'm going to be repeating it a lot as we talk today. I also will say that the more you do everything for the highest good, sort of always having that in the back of your mind while you're looking at trusting that inner voice and opening up that inner voice, is to always know for the highest good. That you don't want to just receive any kind of message psychically. You only want stuff that is going to be for your highest good. And I know it sounds funny that how can I just say that and it's going to be what comes through? My message to you is that your subconscious is always truly on your side in any intuitive message. Even if it comes through in a way that's bumpy or something, it's still trying to get through to you from a place of intention and light. So to open up psychically for the highest good, where you're not going to do it to say spy on people that you want to, or manipulate the lottery or something freaky and weird like that, which doesn't work. And it doesn't work for a reason, because it's not for the highest good necessarily, unless you were saying maybe going to donate that to a whole bunch of people in earnest. But sometimes our inner self knows that even if we thought we would, we might not. Okay, I'm blithering. Where I want to go is to ask yourself, how does it make me feel? Am I thinking this or am I feeling this? Is this thought or is it feeling? And to let that evolve. When we first meet people, we get a gut feeling about them. Now, logically, sometimes we're also thinking. When we meet people, we may be looking at how they're dressed or how they carry their body language, kind of the energy that they're projecting forward. Sometimes when we meet someone new, our inner voice is like, I don't know about this person, even though there's no real reason why we can logically understand why that little thing came through. Or sometimes we meet somebody, we think this person's wonderful. I feel so good just standing next to this person. And to know that that also is a feeling response coming from your own inner voice. Now, again, anybody who makes you a little uncomfortable doesn't mean they're a bad person. We don't need to go to extremes in every feeling that we have. It may just mean that that person's energy's off a little bit, or maybe it's something that, you're just supposed to take note of a little bit. Keep it in the back of your mind. You don't have to be highly reactive to every single feeling, but to really take note of how we feel in given situations. Sometimes even when we enter a new place or we hear about something, all of a sudden we feel pulled to it. Some people really just have these things that they're drawn to throughout their whole life automatically. And I always encourage people to figure out what exactly is the symbolism of that. Does it symbolize something? Some people collect objects of a certain nature their whole life and don't know why. Some people may be really into elephant sculptures and things. Elephants are incredible and they're beautiful and they're amazing. But the psychic intuitive vibe about elephants are that they're the record keepers, that history really matters to them, that they're extremely family oriented. And people who are particularly drawn to the symbolism of this creature over a large period of time may need to understand why their inner self has caused them to have a subconscious, subtle suggestion of the energy and the love or the balance of this animal in their life for their own inner comfort for some reason. And to know that we are highly driven by our intuitive self in everywhere we go in our life. We all know that uh-oh feeling, or that thought of, I didn't finish something, I know something's undone, or I left something behind. It just speaks to us. There's something here I don't know about. I always encourage us to sometimes journal those experiences or follow up on that and go see what exactly is that my psychic self was nagging at me about. Again, don't put things on a big scale of good or bad. When we're opening up intuitively, we want it to be a grand adventure no matter what we discover. So to make sure that we're taking this with not too heavy of, oh, I got an icky feeling, that must be something bad, is sort of, no, that icky feeling got your attention, maybe so that you investigate it further or ask more questions or find out more to settle that feeling. But to be open to, again, how it made you feel. I'm a big one for, again, jotting it down, taking notes. The more you listen to what your gut feeling is on things, the more you start to support, again, that story of trust, that framework of trust, to learn to know I can use my mind, I can use my education, I can use my life experiences, I can use my strength, my skill, but I can also use my psychic intuitive self, my inner voice, my gut feelings on things to expand my success where I am in my life. I feel as though for us, it also flows into how I want to project myself forward, say, if I am going to an interview, or just today, meeting you guys and being able to speak today. I was jazzed for this. I knew this is transformational and healthy and important for people to wake up and play with inside of their own inner selves. And it's important, instead of, say, approaching this from a fear-based place or a worrisome place, for me to have been excited behind this means the very first moment that you saw me and I started to interact with you, how I feel about this came out forward towards all of you, that you immediately sensed in yourself, here's someone who's not afraid of this topic at all and excited about it. What I want to say about that is, when you're, say, going to a job interview, or if you're going and meeting someone new, whether it's dating, whether it's just a new friendship you might be developing, or you're going to go learn something from somewhere, to be sure that what you're creating internally is to know your first impression we can never recreate. Our first impression of how we perceive everything as well, we can never see again. So to know that's a moment of great intuition and great inner awareness is how something made us feel at the very moment it happened. When I'm going to an interview, I want to approach it that if it's for my highest good, I am the absolute best person for this job. In my head, that is how I want to be feeling upon entering that interview. I want to project that forward, because I know that those who are doing the interview are intuitive beings also, and their inner voice, their psychic self, will feel my intentions. My intentions float far outside of me and permeate to you guys. Even if I were sitting here, and if, like, again, if I'm thinking, say, behind all of this, maybe I was thinking negative thoughts or something. Even if I had a smile on my face, the intuitive self in you would pick up something that's off. The face isn't matching the vibe. The sound or what's being said doesn't match. That happens a lot in our lives. It happens all the time. And what I will say is to start to see, what am I hearing? What makes sense? What seems logical? And what is this really? How do I feel over here on the other side? Again, not needing to judge it. We don't need to think, well, there must be something wrong with that person. But we can certainly understand something's off. Maybe I need to listen to my inner voice and try and figure out maybe that I don't need to follow that completely. There's something more I need to know, but to always pay attention to your inner self, that little nagging voice. It's a subtle thing. It doesn't usually come in loud and booming. People ask all the time, well, what do you hear? What do you see when you're doing this, work? Sometimes it's just a very subtle thing. I could suddenly have a little memory of my own story pop into my head, and it's brought me forward to think, oh, okay, that's a little memory. Obviously, that has nothing to do with, say, a psychic question someone's asked me as my memory, but that memory triggers a feeling in me. And that feeling most likely has something to do with the message of love and light that's supposed to go to this person, a triggering of the inner voice. A lot of psychic messages come through to us while we're dreaming, whether it's daydreaming or quite literally dreaming. And if you do have, say, your little psychic journal or a dream journal, to know that a lot of times when you wake up, we can't remember much about the dream, but we'll remember how that dream made us feel for sure. We can ask ourselves that right away. How do I feel? It could be that it was funny, or it was scary, or I was drained, it was stressed, I was neutral, it was odd. Important are not necessarily details. Some people get so wrapped up in, well, I had this neighbor, but I think it was my brother and they were doing this thing, but it was weird. And I think, yeah, dreams are weird. Your psychic self talks through symbolism and feeling more than it does trying to tell you a story that's going to play out like a movie. It will be that possibly that all represents something, your role in there. It doesn't mean that your brother's going to move across the street and do something weird in his yard. It just may mean that how you feel about the way that symbolism affected your internal voice is a message for you. It might be a message of, who knows, it could be that this is a moment for you to sort out something with your brother possibly, or your perception of something that has to do with your relationship with him. It most likely isn't about him though. I will tell you that very rarely are you going to have a dream. Occasionally happens. Occasionally you'll get a dream that is specifically about someone else, and it's poignant. You can't mistake it. They stick with you. If it's a message, say from a loved one doing mediumship, coming in to let you know they're okay from the other side, those are clear as a bell and they stick with you, and you wake up and you know that was different. That was different. I'm referencing more of the subtle, weird, sort of bizarre dreams that we have, where it's just this kind of weird, rambling story that goes through a lot of very strange stuff. Sometimes dreams can be very repetitive as well. What I will say is, in that, we can say, okay, if this isn't a huge, giant, booming message about something, because it doesn't have that feeling that that was just a visitation from a loved one. This is chaotic and interesting. How did it make me feel? Each section of it, seeing this thing, what was I doing there? Was I looking for something? Was I running from something? How did it make me feel? And to jot down, especially the feelings, not as much as the details. After a while, the details usually leave your mind anyway. There is a lot of theory that every single character in your dream is a piece of yourself in some interesting psychology. And that also is a very curious way to perceive your dreams, to look for, what is my subconscious trying to say to me? Now, there are other dreams that are simply you processing what you experienced through the day or through the week, and those have a different feel to them. Those can be very choppy and just like downloading a bunch of information. It's the dreams that catch your eye. It's the dreams that trigger you, where it's important to maybe sit with it and mull it over a little bit, journal it, meditate on it, ask yourself how it felt, and take it into to see if there's a message there for you, if your internal voice is trying to communicate with you in some way. What's key is that as you start to develop this more and more, you really start to understand that the more we trust ourselves and listen, that we can choose well for ourselves, to start to cheer ourselves on, to understand that everything we go through in our life is teaching us and helping us become more grounded. We can also see it as everything that we learn psychically as well is adding to all that, everything we learn intuitively. My feeling is that it nags at you all the time. It's there all the time. We all had it. You just know stuff. You don't know how you know it, but you know it. When you have a friend who's telling you about something new and exciting in your life, you're going to get a gut feeling as soon as they say it. Even if it doesn't match what they're saying, you might get a really excited, that feels like the perfect thing feeling even before they finish their sentence. To listen to that, to think, oh my gosh, I was really onto that. I was really jazzed about that. The moment you started talking about it, I heard myself heard it. Or it could be the other end of it, where you think, ooh, that has a hesitation to it. I have a feeling to that. Again, we're not going to throw negatives towards somebody's excitement, but it is something to take note of. Is my first feeling about that was a little bit, like it just subtle, like a little bit held back. Note to self, I'm just downloading it, maybe a little bit of an intuitive message. I don't have to act on it. I certainly don't have to be reactive nor say anything about it, but to maybe write it down with a question mark. I had this little odd questioning experience, and then see how the results come out for them if that's the case. Again, it's not huge, all good or all bad. It's such a subtle little thing that sits inside of all of us. I feel like there's so much for people to learn when it comes to opening up intuitively, and my feeling is that a lot of people look at it as, it's so much, it's so big. How do I start? Where do I go? And my message is, it's already in you. So sit with it and play with it a little bit. Maybe just sit and meditate for a few minutes before you make an interesting phone call where you might get some results of something, like a friend, whether they got the job or not. But sit before making the call and ask yourself, what is my intuition telling me? Yes or no? Write it down just to practice, and then make the phone call and see, oh, my gut feeling said this. Were you thinking it or were you feeling it is a very important thing. Of course, we want our friend to get the job they want. We want that for them. But when we quiet away the want or the hope, dream, or wish, and we come into, but what does my inner voice say? It could be the same message, or it could be a little bit different. And again, as strange as it is, it's subtle. Give space for it. Take a moment to listen to what your internal voice is saying. The more you do it, the clearer it gets. The more you do it, your internal voice learns how to tell it to you in a way that you understand. At first, it might be quite cryptic. You might only just see when you sit to meditate on, say, I have a question. I want to know, should I get another dog? Am I going to get another dog? Is this good for me? Is it for my highest good? I just want a little bit of a message. And maybe I just want to sit with that question for a moment. I have to get away from how, if I emotionally want another dog, or if I logically think, oh, my dog needs a friend. But if I look at, is this the dog? Should I get this one? To sit quietly with it and wait for my internal voice to speak to me in some way. I may think, oh, I'm going to get a yes for sure. I may get a message that says, right now it's not the time, even if you want it, maybe hearing that, or the feeling of hesitation, or a feeling of maybe I need more information. Maybe this isn't the dog, maybe it's another. Again, I'm just using that as an example. I don't even know why that just popped into my head, but it feels like a good one, where you just sit and ask yourself, I'm going to think about it logically, but I'm also going to ask myself, is this the right combination for me? Is this the right time for me? What does my inner self say? We all have things that we feel inside where inside our head, we have this little communication going on of, when somebody's not telling you the truth. I don't know if you're like me, but inside I just sit and I nod and I think, oh, wow, that person's really not being honest right now. It's just so, I don't feel it. You don't have to react. It's more of a knowing. You just feel it somewhere inside. I don't have to let the whole world know all of the inner voice that's going on inside, just to be aware inside myself, what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling about everything. Great ways to practice are to take abstract ideas, such as the color blue. Okay, so the color blue, there it is. We can study different names of the color blue. We can look at a whole different variety of shades of blue. We can think of things in our life that are blue, like the sky and the wall we had in our room when we were a child. But have you ever sat and asked yourself, how does the color blue, what do I feel? What do I feel when I simply feel when I look at the color teal? Or when I look at the color navy blue, how do I feel? As silly and strange as it sounds, and it's just an exercise to know the difference between thinking and feeling. You may feel, peaceful. It might feel cold. It might remind you of something that you're off put by, like the awful blue car you used to have, and you just couldn't stand it. And so you're triggered, that's thought. But to know how that happened is that blue reminds you, and that becomes a feeling of being off put. Where did it come from? I'm using this as a small example because your subconscious mind will speak to you in sometimes very subtle ways. Some people want to go into a meditation and come out with some giant, bold, amazing experience. And my thought is, go into a meditation with no expectations and come out of it with whatever it is, and sit and feel whatever you came out of it. Sometimes I've gone into meditations and literally only seen the color blue. It's an easy example for me because I have sat to say, how does that make me feel after I come out and I want to process what I experienced? My thought is to the image of different things. I may close my eyes and see a butterfly and think, oh, that was weird. I just thought about something, or I posed a question to my inner self and I close my eyes and I just close my eyes for a second. And what do I see? It could be so strange and random. It could be a gate. It could be, I close my eyes and I see the sun. And my message to you is to sit and you can research what that means psychically. There's so many resources for that online, but don't get stuck in someone else's perception of what a psychic message should be. To also look at inside yourself, when I saw it, how did I feel? So we could see the sun when we close our eyes. Oh, I see sunshine. I see a bright, beautiful sun. Did I feel warm? Was I excited about it? Did I feel revved up? Did I feel competitive and charged? Did I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm running out of time in the day? One little image can make every single one of us, no matter how many are trying it, we all could see something different. What's important is that it's not about who's right. It's about your language with your internal voice with the same exact exercise is going to speak completely different than my language with my internal voice. Studying psychic development, you can read a lot of books. You can talk to so many wonderful teachers out there in the greater world. What's important, though, is to give those moments of time to figure out your unique internal language. And it's baby steps, baby steps. Our internal little language is a beautiful, subtle thing that has walked with us all of our life. That tiny little subtleness. And when we start to play with it, when we start to develop a trust in it, it actually starts to come out and play with us more. One thing I will say, though, is if I've got a headache, or if I am busy with, let's say, a lot of stressful things in my daily life, I've got a lot of processes I have to get through, a lot of things that I'm very much in the daily go, go, go. It's really sometimes very difficult to sit down and suddenly do a bunch of psychic stuff. And what I've been blessed to learn over time is that I can categorize things. I can set my busyness aside, or I can set what I'm entangled in outside of, like, in my life. And I can then quiet my mind and be open to the internal world, trusting that I can pick right back up with all the details of things that I need to attend to, but that I need to make sacred time to open up that inner voice. And the more busy I am, the more I need to practice or create space. For me, it's my job, right? This is my full-time job. And if it really got a lot going on, I could tell you that I have to take about an hour before I work to sort of close down the busyness, the chaos, and all the stuff in the daily life, to sit and be open to my internal world without letting that chaos flow into my career, my work, reading for clients, or spending time working with their own development. I have to be singularly focused. The more I exercise that in almost every little process of my daily life, little things that you do every day, that you stay very focused in that singular process, can help you learn, okay, I'm going to do some psychic stuff. I'm going to quiet all that busyness. I'm going to open up my quiet internal world. And then I promise that I'll get right back to attending to the activities. I know I'm not going to suddenly get lazy, or I'm not going to forget. I will pick it right back up. And we have to learn to develop that more and more as we open up, because once we give that space, your psychic self, your intuitive self, will get pretty excited when you're ready to sit down, say, and do a meditation. Or if you really are seeking some answers and you want to pose it to your dream space, your inner voice, it gets kind of excited to answer these questions the more you start to expand it, to say, okay, I don't know what the answer should be. I'm not sure what I want to choose, but I'm going to sleep on it. And I'll wake up in the morning and hopefully I'll have some feelings about it that came through in my dream space. It's okay to put this forward to your subconscious mind before putting your head to the pillow, is to say, I'd like to know. I'd like it to come in a format that's for my highest good. I'd like it to have a feeling attached to it that I understand. And I'm going to ask to receive these messages in my sleep through my internal self. And if I've practiced paying attention to my dreams, the more you practice those things, the more you can start to trust that. You can also use it as a psychic tool by posing questions to your dreams before going to sleep and waking up in the morning. And instead of waking up and saying, what's the answer, is to wake up and say, how did that dream make me feel? Because again, it may not just be a yes or no. There's a lot of variables that might be influencing decisions in your dream. As complex as it may be really giving you information that you can become empowered on in making those choices. It might be that you have to interview further or find out more, or maybe there's a third choice that's coming and that isn't even on the table yet. And because you don't logically see that in your mind yet, you haven't made space for it as a possibility, but your intuitive self maybe saying it's neither of these things. There's something else coming, and that could come to you through a sensation in a dream space or a meditation, or just simply quieting your mind and asking, I know I'll know when it's time to know. I trust my inner voice to bring me forward, and I'm not going to get plugged overthinking this thing. Again, it's easy to say. I appreciate it's not the easiest thing to do in our life. It's, I'm just not going to think about it. I'm just going to let it happen. What I will say is it's not about handing over all of our go and our do. It's about making space inside all the go and the do for quietness, silence, and trusting that if things are supposed to bubble forward, they naturally will. For me, it's a never-ending experience as well. As you develop your internal voice, you may find that you do want to really get into learning more about meditation, or maybe you're going to want to expand and learn how to read tarot cards or something really cool like that. Who knows? What I'll say is that you can take it as far as you want it to go. You could have it be that you just simply want to understand your dreams more, or maybe you just want to be able to trust that you can choose, make good, healthy choices a little bit better by trusting yourself more. I personally think that's the biggest benefit that comes out of opening up your inner voice, awakening that inner voice, is that you trust yourself more. You start to unconditionally accept yourself more as well. And when we do that, there is this neat little chemical miracle that goes on in us, is that we naturally start to accept and understand others more, because we also understand that they're sometimes caught in their head or they're tangled up. The more we open up our internal voice and become more comfortable trusting ourselves, we aren't as threatened or affected by other people who think differently than us. We can even just enjoy what we learn from them or what that triggers in us. When I'm learning to get over, say I have, there's something that bothers me about somebody, that person really bothers me, they really bother me. I leave space for, what am I learning? How am I learning? How am I becoming a better person for the highest good by addressing this feeling? What do I have power over changing? And my internal self, what am I learning by being bothered by that person? Because it really isn't about that person. That person didn't do, that's just somebody. But they're triggering me. They're not doing it to me. My internal voice is being triggered for some reason. I assure you, the message that's going on in here isn't for me to give to them. It's for me to learn about me in here. Maybe it's simply that I'm ready to get over something in my life and this person's bringing that forward for me. Or maybe it's that I need to understand that they might be a very broken person and I don't need to get tangled up in whatever their confusion is. And it's off-putting to me for a reason. It made me feel off. They didn't make me feel, though. My little internal voice did that all on its own. And it's my journey to dive in, to play with what's going on in there, and to start to understand it by empowering myself. And that's what I'm hoping I have helped you along with chatting with you about this, is that we all have it. We all have this amazing, limitless piece of us that is connected truly to all that is. This light being in us came here to learn, came here to become more comfortable with who we are, to learn to love better, to learn to look forward to life as an adventure, to learn to take it all in. And that little psychic self inside of you is a key player in helping advance these things for you. So I have a 8-part psychic development class that's free. It's 2.5 hours. It's in 8 sections on my YouTube channel. And it takes a lot of what I've addressed here. I had so many notes. They're stuck all over the front of my computer of things I wanted to say to you guys today. But I will say that if you are seeking to expand your psychic self more, there are wonderful things to learn from. Never put anyone above you. Just because I've been doing this for over a quarter of a century doesn't mean that what I see is more powerful than anything your internal voice would say to you specifically. And to never, ever leave all of your power into the charge of anyone else. Again, as a professional psychic, I have other psychics that sometimes are bothered by my perception of that, is I don't ever want my clients to need me to make choices for them. I only want others to learn how to hear their own inner voice, to let me confirm what they're already feeling inside with what I see, how it's panning out in front of me. But for each person to be able to trust that inside themselves and to wake it up and to never hand your power over to anybody else. So thank you. And I enjoyed this so much, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Wendy. That was amazing. So many great tips and insights. Thank you so much.
Oh, I just have one quick thing I just wanted to say.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I just looked at my notes down here, and there is this, when you're going to a job interview or when you're meeting someone new to date even or something, to allow yourself to repeat a few tiny things. You're a brave communicator, that you have loving intentions, that you're already a success. The world's just finding out more and more every day, that your intention is to be kind, that you're worthy of knowing. And if it is the job that's best for you, you're the best person they could possibly find. And to run these things through when you're just as little mantras on your way to say, start a new relationship or start a new job or go into an interview. If it's for your highest good, it's for you to receive.
That's amazing. That was wonderful. So we will open the floor up for a couple questions. If you do have any for Wendy, please go ahead and drop them in the chat or the Q&A. I do see that we have one in the Q&A. So Wendy, this is a little bit of a specific question, but I'm going to give it to you.
Okay.
I am a clairvoyant and clairsentient, and I recently started to be able to communicate message from spirit guides to people. I'm wondering, what do I say to people when spirit guides no longer wish to communicate with them?
That's awesome. Oh, I love that. And clairvoyant and clairsentient, I love it. You're in the claras, and that's just a powerful place to be. What I think is, I think honesty is the best policy. I would say, though, it's never anybody's fault. Everything happens as it's supposed to. If that spirit guide is choosing right now to not communicate, or that spirit that they want to talk to no longer wants to communicate, personally, to me, as long as you present it from an intention of love, light, support, and kindness, caring, to be able to say, the message I'm receiving right now is that this person right now is taking space. This individual, it's not about, it's their choice to not want to come through right now, or they're choosing not to at this moment. It's not a failure. It's not a negative. To make sure that the person receiving it, that this isn't a bad thing. It's just a message. It's neutral in its nature. It doesn't have to have emotions attached to it. That is how I would present it. I love the hesitation you have. And I love the thought that, hey, if it's not necessarily the warmest message, maybe I shouldn't deliver it. My thought for you is to reconsult your inner voice, reconsult your message, and say, how do I present this in a way that's supportive and loving? And to go ahead and ask your guides and your psychic self, how do I turn this into a message that still feels safe and warm, even with its fact and its truth and its information in it? And I assure that your inner self will give you a format that you can present this in a loving way, but still be very honest with what your messages are.
That's great. That's great. And I like the approach of coming from a loving angle, loving perspective, right? That's great.
That's key. It's very important.
We have another question.
Good.
Any symbolism of the zodiac and its connection to the subconscious mind?
Extremely. The zodiac has been studied for so very long, and the symbolisms alone speak to the subconscious mind. The more you know about it, the more you've studied about it, that all goes into what I call a pool of knowledge, where your subconscious self will start to speak to you through symbolisms that have to do with the zodiac. Say, I'm looking for time frames when I want to see when something's going to come to pass. I may receive that message in the form of a zodiac sign, which tells me what time of year it may come or what month it may occur. The zodiac is a very powerful thing if you're studying astrology and things like that. I am not well studied in astrology, though I work with many professionals who are. It is so complex. But the symbolism of the zodiac, even if we don't know what they mean, like book knowledge, they still speak. We've seen those symbols all our life. Those symbols have been around us since we came into this life. And to know it's bringing something forward for a reason. My feeling is you can study more about it or simply ask yourself, how did, say that I'm a Scorpio, so I'll use the Scorpion symbology. How did that make me feel? What did that mean to me? How do I feel about that? How do I feel about Scorpios or the name Scorpio? Does it trigger memories? To sink into lots of different variables of what that may trigger in you. It might be that you're supposed to go read a little bit and open a book and trust that the first thing I read about Scorpios might be a message for me that has to do with the question I've asked. I think it's so limitless. I think every symbol could mean so many vast different things. You really want to ask yourself again, what format did this messaging come in? And what was my initial feeling when I saw it? It may be the way the question was posed. It might have been that you were curious that a zodiac symbol came up or something. And my thought is follow that curiosity. What time of year is that? Do I know people of that symbol? How do I feel when I hear that being spoke about in just my daily life? I would say asking a zillion questions. You become like this weird little detective. As soon as you get a psychic image, it's sort of, what am I feeling? Is it this? Is it that? How does that make me feel? And you start to ask a zillion questions, because within the answers of those questions, you'll have some that feel so bang on. It's like, oh yeah, well, that feels like that's what that was saying to me, that thought, that process.
Mhm.
I hope I answered that right. That was kind of, I went a little bit all over to get to the center of whatever it is to you, right? I can't say what for sure it means because it will be your inner language.
And I think that's so key, right? The feeling that you get. We're so quick to take it up to our head and think about it, but what is that initial feeling? Why did it make you feel that way?
And have fun in there. Like, we don't need to have an answer right away. And sometimes not having an answer is part of the message too. Just because I don't know what it means doesn't necessarily isn't a bad thing. It can also be sometimes you're left unsure. And personally, I know that sounds weird coming again from a psychic, is sometimes we just don't know. But I can't stress that enough. This isn't about absolutes. It's about learning yourself and expanding more and being okay not knowing sometimes.
Yes. All right. Another question. Is there a starting point to wanting to raise our vibration levels?
A starting point. Ooh, what an interesting question. I think every moment's a point of power myself. I think every moment is a starting point for something, right? That's just how I live. I think, well, you can start right now. So a starting point for raising vibration to me is, I'm a big one. I work on visuals. I like visuals in my head. I like to see like energy starting to spin and bright light starting to shine and sparkles starting to shoot out of it. I'm all about sparkle. That's what works for me. I like that swirling, radiating light feeling. But you can raise your vibration through dance, laughter, happiness, joy, contentment, healthy eating, good rest, moments of great spectacular joy, and with conscious awareness that can raise our vibration, joyful music, lighting candles, prayer, chanting, singing, drumming. All of those things are physical things you can do. What I'd say to you is there a starting part? Find something that brings you joy. Stay inside that space for a moment and soak it up and know, I want to know what this moment of joy feels like, even when I'm just sitting in a chair in my own living room. I want to be able to go back to this great joyful moment and recall it from the center of my being to raise my vibration no matter where I stand. I might be online at the grocery store and I feel a little low and I want to raise my vibration. I'm going to recall moments that have done that for me naturally in my daily life, recall it and bring it forward. So where's the starting place? I'd say where your passions lie. What brings you that feeling? Like when I start to swim, I don't want to get out of the water. I'm so jazzed by it. When I start to dance, I don't want to get off the dance floor. I'm so joyful and happy. And I feel like that's a cone of power for me to bring forward that joyful feeling when I'm about to go to bed and I just want to feel happy about something. Maybe I had a heavy day. I can plug in those memories, clue into how that made me feel, and recall that feeling in the now space. So I think every moment, where do you start? Start start where you start to feel better and good, even if it's a fleeting moment, and bring that up, bring it up more.
Aw, that's lovely. All right, I think we have time for two more. So this one is kind of a follow-up question to our initial one about the clairvoyancy.
Yep.
They say thank you. You really helped answer their question.
Oh, I hope so.
But they were also wondering, is it ethical to say to someone when I see spirits beside them or wanting to communicate with them? They say, I don't want to catch people off guard, and they don't want to catch people off guard. So is it appropriate?
This is a really awesome question, because I work with a lot of professional psychics, tons of them. And I would say it's about 50-50. What I hear from even others who are professionally in this industry is, do you approach or not? I personally do not. I don't approach unless it just feels like really like life or death, I suppose, being a little dramatic here, but really where it's like an urgency, where something's really, really nagging. Mm-hmm. Or I like to pose it to the universe. I trust universe enough that if it's meant to be, they'll find their way to me, because this is what I do for a job. That the right people will come and receive the messages. I would say, asking on a scale inside, how much is it nagging at you? Does it feel like it's a message that this person, you might be able to say something in a loving way that isn't necessarily, hello, I'm in the middle of chatting with one of your loved ones and they really want to have a conversation with you. It may be that you can say, I don't want to off-put this person. Is there something I can just lovingly say as I walk past them that maybe they need to hear right now in this moment? My thought is, again, we talked at the very beginning about what makes you tick. At the end of the day, is it that, inside yourself to say, do I need to say this to them? Do I just need to hear that I heard that voice and thank that spirit for letting me know that I'm right tuned in and I'm hearing it? Or am I supposed to deliver this forward? If I'm going to deliver it forward, am I doing that for me or am I doing that for them? Is this about me being right? Is it about me feeling like I need to pursue this further with them? And I know it sounds strange to ask yourself those questions, but the thought is, if maybe this is a little bit of my ego here, that's healthy to know. And if it's not your ego, if it really feels like a very pure, beautiful moment and it feels safe, it's okay to run past one more time and say, does this feel like it's for their highest good? And ask your own guides to help you discover that answer. It's about 50-50 with all the psychics I know.
Perfect. Thank you, Wendy. All right. Our last question. We're wondering, is it difficult to learn how to read tarot?
Oh, I love tarot. I started with tarot when I was 18, and it is a complex tool. A lot of people think that they have to learn all 78 cards, the meaning of them, and memorize the meaning of all 78 cards. And it's so off-putting. My thought is, even if you're not necessarily learning the full structure of tarot first, I'd rather you learn tarot's made, it's a structure. It's really kind of like an outline. It has a whole format to it. We don't need to remember all the exact words of someone else's perception of those cards. We simply want to understand why each card is named what it is, what its role is in the sequence of tarot. But let's say I don't even want to learn that part yet. It's okay to have a tarot deck and just pull a card and just ask yourself, I don't know what it means, but how does it make me feel? Just one card a day. Or to put the cards out in front of you, even if you don't know what they mean, but ask, does this feel chaotic? Does it feel like it's all moving together? Are faces facing each other or back to back? How does that make me feel? My thought is, we can read anything. Tarot is a very complex, powerful tool. My thought is, you can take it. I know people who work professionally with tarot and don't know what the cards mean. Truly, they just go with however they feel. And this is their, I almost like, I say it like this, because for me, tarot is such a complex study. I've been doing it for 30 years and I'm still constantly learning about tarot. Mm-hmm. You can take it as far as you want it, but those cards, any image, art speaks to us. I could read a piece of art as much as I could read a tarot card too. So to not get stuck on the definition of each card, let it start to come to you some, but let those cards start to play with you a little bit if you want to get into it.
Nice. And I find too, personally, tarot seemed a little overwhelming to me in the beginning.
It is.
I started with Oracle.
Those are great.
I found Oracle to be a little less overwhelming than tarot. So those are a great starting point too. And again, you don't have to know what they mean, but the pictures speak just as much.
Yeah, they do. And there is, the tarot has so much symbolism in it, and there's this huge, like, it's such a massive area of study, and it can seem overwhelming to a lot of people. But if you're already ready to just look at oracle cards and get a vibe from them, tarot's just one little skip away from that, as long as you're not overwhelmed by thinking you have to know the whole all about it to be able to use the tool. The tool's there to use, just like a crystal ball. It sits there. I don't have to study about it much to be able to at least have one and play with it a little, and maybe it'll talk to me.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much, Wendy. We are unfortunately out of time today.
I loved it.
But I wanted to thank you for joining us. And I'd like to thank all of our learners today for joining us for our second Let's Get Social activity this week. Please be sure to check out the AC Hub's regularly scheduled virtual events and also the other social activities we have happening this week. And again, thank you to everyone for joining us. And thank you, Wendy. We look forward to seeing you at our next event.
Thank you. Take care of you.
Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.